1 in 7 retirees has now returned to work. And why do you think that is? Well, the main reason might actually surprise you. It's not actually boredom or wanting for something to do. It's actually the cost of living crisis that's squeezing retirement incomes. So in this video, we're going to cover exactly why this is happening. We're going to look at the financial pressures driving people back to work. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to look at the tax rules that you do need to understand. And we'll also cover the pension trap that catches a lot of returners out. We'll also finish with practical next steps and a quick summary. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much you can earn without it causing you too much problems. You'll understand the tax implications before you start, and you'll avoid the pension mistakes that are costing retirees thousands that are returning to work. So my name's Zach Hussain and I run financialeducation.co.uk, and I've got over 25 years experience of helping people plan for their retirement. Let's start by looking at the financial reasons retirees are unretiring. Well, Standard Life, one of the largest insurers in the UK, found that 1 in 7 retirees over 55 has returned to work, which for me is an astounding number. But the question is, why is it happening at such a scale right now? Well, 37% said they needed to return back to work because they needed an income due to rising costs. And 27% found their pension simply wasn't enough to live on. So this means over half the returners did so for financial reasons. Now, here's what makes this different from previous generations. They couldn't have predicted inflation would erode their spending power. The reality is that the pension income now buys less than when they first retired, and the personal allowance freezes make this even worse. It's been stuck at £12,570 since April 2021, and it's not going to rise until April 2028 at the earliest, maybe even beyond that. But the state pension keeps rising with this triple lock. So more retirees are being dragged into paying income tax. And from 2026, as things currently stand, the state pension is actually going to be above the personal allowance. So all pensioners could end up paying tax. So what does all this mean? Well, it means that your real spending power shrinks from both directions. But before you rush back to work, there are some crucial considerations. You do need to understand exactly what happens to your taxes first. So let's start by looking at the key tax rules. So when it does come to returning to work, there are some tax implications that you do need to think about. Well, the good news first, because there's one major benefit here actually, and that is if you're above state pension age, you don't pay national insurance. So that's an immediate saving compared to people that haven't yet reached that point in their retirement. So this means you keep more of every pound that you earn, but income tax still applies to everything that you receive. As I said earlier, the personal allowance for this current tax year is £12,570, and anything above that gets taxed at 20% basic rate tax, and obviously 40% if you go above just a touch over £50,000 a year. And the full new state pension, well, that's currently £230 a week, which works out about £12,000 a year, and from April 26, that's going to go up to about £12,500 a year. So the state pension alone means that you use your entire allowance up. Now, when you add your private pension income on top of that, and suddenly you find that any earnings from work are getting taxed immediately. So let's say you have £5,000 from a workplace pension. Your combined pension now exceeds your personal allowance already. Every pound from work then gets taxed at 20% minimum. But that's not the biggest trap waiting for returners, unfortunately. I'm going to cover that in the next slide. So the trap that catches a lot of people out, and this is what happens to returning retirees, and often I see this being their biggest mistake, and it's called the Money Purchase Annual Allowance, or the MPAA. And what it can do is it can seriously limit your future pension contributions. So here's how the trap works in practice. So when you were working, you can normally contribute up to £60,000 a year and receive tax relief on those contributions. But the amount you could pay in was limited to your earnings if they were lower than £60,000. But once you flexibly access your pension, this drops dramatically. Your annual allowance falls from £60,000 to just £10,000. So that's equivalent to an 83% reduction in your tax-efficient saving limit. The MPAA triggers when you take taxable income from drawdown. It also triggers when you take an uncrystallised funds lump sum. However, taking just your 25% tax-free cash doesn't trigger it. And buying a guaranteed lifetime annuity well, that doesn't trigger it either. So timing and the method of access really matters here. But the question is, why does it matter if you're going back to work? Well, if you go back to work, you might be entitled to receive pension contributions again from your employer. And you might decide, actually, what I would like to do is to rebuild my pension pot again. But with the MPAA, you're severely restricted on your tax relief. Now, there are ways to work without triggering this tax though, and it's something you will need to think through. Now let's look at the practical steps before you return to work. First, check whether you've already triggered the MPAA limit. Your pension provider must notify you when this happens. If you haven't triggered it yet, consider your options carefully. Taking only tax-free cash keeps your full allowance intact. Second, think about deferring your state pension while working. For every 9 weeks that you defer, you roughly get 1% more on your state pension. So that works out to be 5.8% extra each year, and you'll get that for the rest of your retirement. So this could make sense if you're paying higher rate tax. Third, remember you stop paying national insurance after pension age. Show your employer proof of age, like your birth certificate. This ensures they don't deduct national insurance from your wages incorrectly. Fourth, calculate your total income from all sources combined. Add your state pension and your private pensions that you'd expect and add it all together. This tells you what tax rate you're going to actually pay. Fifth, consider whether part-time work actually fits your situation better. So working either 1 day a week can add significant value. The Standard Life calculator, this could add about £21,000 to your pension pot. So, it is a sizable sum, and so certainly nothing to be sniffed at. So let's wrap up the video with the key points and the key takeaways from it. So, as I said at the very beginning, 1 in 7 retirees over 55 has returned to work, and that is a huge number. The main driver is financial pressure, not boredom, and over half went back due to income concerns, and that was a specific reason that they cited. So you've got to remember as well, when you do go back to work and if you're above state pension age, you do not pay national insurance, but income tax will apply to all of your earnings. And the personal allowance, well, they're currently frozen at £12,570, and your state pension is going to use up all that allowance entirely from April 26 onwards. And don't forget, I talked about this earlier on, the MPAA is the biggest trap for returning retirees, and it's the one thing that I often find catches people out. And what triggers the MPAA? Well, it's taking a flexible pension income from your pension pot. And by doing so, the maximum you can pay into a pension each year is going to be limited to £10,000, and that's contributions from both you and the employer. So only take tax-free cash or annuities to avoid this. And also, from a tax perspective, if you don't need the money, you can consider deferring your state pension whilst you're still earning. By doing so, you're going to get about 5.8% extra to your state pension each year. So calculate your total income before accepting any job offers. Now, part-time work can still add significant value to your pot, but the key is understanding these rules before you start working. So I hope you found this information useful, and if you did, I greatly appreciate it if you give the video a like, and do subscribe to our channel where we have lots of other videos around retirement planning and issues to be thinking through. Finally, good luck and goodbye.